Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode on the Goddess Glow podcast with me, your host, Ray Grillo. And today I have a special guest who I met through a mastermind and that we've never met in person. I have only seen each other via Zoom. And his name is Terrence Sani. He is the owner of Sani Creative, and he does amazing graphic design work. When you guys have the chance to, obviously I always suggest like seeking out or searching whomever I have to come on and their stuff. However, Terrence, man, like you got some great work. Like I just am so baffled sometimes at the graphic designs. Like I could never come up with it. I can never come up with it. And it just like is so cohesive. And I feel like you are very in tune with people's energy. And thank you so much for coming on today.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. That was a crazy, awesome introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and I know we've scheduled beforehand, and some stuff happened. And I believe
Right.
during Mercury retrograde, so you know that.
Yeah, it was literally the worst I've experienced. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on, and I would love for the viewers to hear your story because I feel like you have a pretty cool story, and you are a father of three. You run your business. You're an entrepreneur. You've done TED Talks, and you have two books. And so, I would love for you to share how you got into graphic design and yeah, essentially what you do in that field.
Awesome. Um, well, I guess one of the reasons why I like web and graphic design is because there's really no limits. I've always been the kind of guy that I've always been a little hard-headed, like not too hard-headed, but just like I just like the color outside the lines, like in life and literally. I was never that guy that had a perfect picture when it came to coloring. Um, I was always curious and I never really liked a solidified anything. I like blueprints. I remember I created my first website in eighth grade and I had no direction or anything. I had Bruce Lee and the band Korn on the website. And my best friend's like, dude, like no one's gonna look at that. Like why that's dumb. And websites were completely different when I was in eighth grade now. But it was pretty much a representation of me. And later on, outside of high school, I joined a band and played guitar. And one of the reasons why I play guitar is because I played the cello for 6 years and I had structure, I had a private teacher, all that stuff. Then it got to the point where I talked to my private teacher and I was like, hey, can you start teaching me like some radio songs, some Nine Inch Nails and all that on cello? And that's what I essentially started to do. So I got rid of all that structure from the cello and kind of applied what I knew to guitar, completely self-taught. Joined a band, hardcore punk band. I love metal, love punk music, and we toured all that, but we didn't have a web and graphic designer. And we were like broke, do it yourself tour. It was like literally the essential of punk, like do it yourself. We had like a cooler with sandwiches and all that stuff. And we had no web designer, no graphic designer. So that was me. Um, so I just, just tried to download any kind of free software I could and try to get us to have some kind of online presence. And, it started to look good. And other bands would reach out to me like, hey, like, who did y'all site? Like, I did it and we can't afford anybody. We just make money from shows and shirts. And so they're like, hey, can you do my site? And I'm like, sure, I'll I'll do it. And so I started doing websites for other bands. And then life kind of got in the way, even though I still had all that coding and all that stuff just from Googling stuff. I pretty much collected a wealth of knowledge from that. And I kind of paused on a web and graphic design. And then later on in life, I started to write my first book.
Mhm.
And then that's kind of when things really started to the snowball really started to go. um, I hired someone on Fiverr for $5, 4.99 plus tax. And I had a speaking background and I consider myself pretty good with words. And so I thought I articulated exactly how I wanted this cover to look to this 4.99 web designer that I hired on Fiverr. I mean, graphic designer that I hired, and they gave me exactly 4.99 plus tax worth of, the cover. Like it looked like trash, and that's when I realized, you get what you pay for, like literally.
Mhm.
And
I'm
so I
just
was like,
envisioning
huh?
like I'm envisioning the I don't know, iMovie or like the templates.
It was insanely, it was bad.
Okay.
It was really, really bad. Like it looked like it didn't cost any more than 514 or what, like it was horrible.
Yeah.
um and so I was like, this isn't the way I want to represent myself, because the Fiverr designer just, once they make the money and that's it, they may not see me, may not hear from me ever again, but I'm like, this book is going to outlast me, so it's got to look correct, for it to be a lifetime representation. So I took my time and I was like, I couldn't afford a designer. I'm like, let me just try it myself, take my time. And so that's when I just reincorporated everything, all my web and graphic design skills from the band. And I was like, okay, this is it. Um, and I came up with my cover like in 2 minutes. I took a selfie in a bathroom at work. I like put like a background of like a city, and it just like worked because I needed the right colors and the right look, and I just made it happen. And people were like, "Hey, who designed your cover?" I'm like, "Me." And they're like, "You did it?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "No, you didn't." I'm like, this is exactly, let me show you, like in my phone, like I showed it to him. Here's the original picture, here's the background, and just combining them together and with some other effects and stuff, and made it look good. And they're like, oh, okay, can you do mine? And so it just went from one to the next. And that's pretty much how the web and graphic design started. My best friend at the time, like, was a drummer in a band that I was in. And he's like, dude, like, you should totally just make this a business. And I'm like, I don't know. And at the time, like, he created a business from being a dog poop scooper. He would just go to houses and pick up their dog poop. And now he's got like a business. He has employees, he has work trucks, all of this stuff. And it's like, I'm like, let me just, take in all the knowledge that I can get from him. And that's essentially, how Sani Creative got started, by other people telling me what they wanted based off of what I was already doing.
Okay. Yeah. I loved how I love your mindset. And your books are a lot on mindset. And you're saying your first book is you talking to your 15-year-old self, right?
Yep.
I do want to touch on though, I love how you said, and you just like knew already, and this is like the mindset I feel a lot of entrepreneurs and even me, I struggle at times, how you're like, this book is going to outlast me.
Right.
And how it's like you already had a vision, like this is like me leading a legacy, and thinking like even that far ahead. Because typically sometimes it's just like, well, I'm going to write this book because I'm going to get this book out and then we'll see what happens. And so yeah, I just love how you said it's going to outlast me, and then just think,
Yeah.
yeah.
When I was a kid, I always thought, and this is probably really strange, I don't know, well, probably perfect for your audience, but when I was a kid, I always thought whatever we do this day, it's gonna like repeat itself. Like when I was a little kid, I felt like everybody went to sleep at the same time, and while we're going to sleep, our day like repeated itself. And we just woke up like in like another day or like in another time, but whatever, like all this real time that's happening now happens like over again while we're sleeping. I don't know. I always thought that. So I guess like my whole life, I always thought that whatever we do now, um, a lot of things that we do now really just doesn't have an expiration date. We may have one in this current body, but like I always felt like something's always moving in the background, no matter what. I always felt like I'm like, I don't know, kind of like and Ninja Turtles, there's like Krang and like the little brain inside the little robot. Like I always felt like I'm like moving something. I always felt like there's something in motion.
Yeah, there is. We're always in motion.
Yeah.
Always spinning. Yeah. Okay, cool. And Okay, so going back to the graphic design in your book, and so your book came out first
Mhm.
versus you starting your business.
Exactly.
Okay. And where did you have you felt like where you are now, like you would have ever been here, like your younger self would have imagined doing what you're doing now?
I feel like, yeah, definitely. Believe
Okay.
it or not, I feel like I'm behind. I feel like I should have always been here. I feel like I have a long way to go,
Mhm.
but I've always, as crazy as it sounds, I've always felt like a chosen one. Like I always felt like a black sheep, no matter what. Like I was always the kid in school that people wanted, like, hey, I want Terrence as my partner. I want Terrence in my team. I've always felt, not that I'm better than anybody, but like I've always felt like I was different. I always felt like there's a path, but that I'm supposed to go, but it's only when I create my own resistance does it take longer to get there. So,
Mm. Man, that resistance is such a tricky thing. I was actually having a thought yesterday on my way to the gym, because
mhm,
I had like one of my first interviews, like where I was actually interviewed on a podcast. And sometimes it could be hard or difficult, at least for me, to receive like good feedback, like, wow, like you're an amazing person. And I realized that a lot of people like say this. However, I'm like resistant to being my best self. It's like I'm resistant to just owning that like I'm like this badass person
yeah,
versus just accepting like, yeah, I am awesome, and now what? Like accepting it, and now what can I do? And I feel like a lot of people, um they get into like that sort of mode. I don't know if it's the same for you. They get into that mode like, like I don't know if I'm that awesome. I don't know if I want to take on that responsibility. I don't know. You
right.
know what I mean? Like I don't. Is that something
Yeah,
you like? Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. Like I feel like a lot of people, well, with this life, there isn't really like a guide.
Mm.
Um, but I almost feel like a lot of times we have the answers, but just we just mask them ourselves because we just I don't even want to say we don't like believe in it, but like it's easier. Like for example, yesterday I built a ladder for our swimming pool, and it was easy to do because I had instructions. But we don't have instructions on our life or how to live or like, so we actually have to like do stuff to figure some stuff out or to believe what our mind's already telling us or what our gut's already telling us. Like I feel like a lot of times for some reason we need additional confirmation. We just can't like believe whatever is within. But if we just did, then we would flow a lot smoother. But we create hurdles and bumps and essentially resistance because like we just need to confirm what we already believe or what we already know.
Mm. Or like confirm. So is it like confirming like your limiting belief, or like confirming like, oh, I guess it could be anything, right? Like confirming
Yeah,
a
because
or confirming like an effective belief that like works for you.
right, because like you said, like you had a hard time, accepting or believing, what people said about you. And it's like, and you it's like, how do you realize it when you are it, so it's like it's hard to see outside yourself, like everybody's seeing what you've already been telling yourself. I just feel like a lot of times like you just what you've been telling yourself is what other people are telling you, but it's harder for you to believe it for some reason. I don't know, internally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's those beliefs. Those beliefs are so tricky.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to move into like talking more a little bit about your book and what your book is about. And who, because you have two books, so you can share
Mhm.
express on both of them. Um, like what they're on and who it helps essentially.
Okay. Well, the first book is You Are Your Outcome: How to Eliminate Self-Made Obstacles, Setbacks, and Fear. And I kind of feel like both my books touch on like the law of attraction. Um, but the thing that kind of sets my first book apart, again, like I said, I hate coloring within the lines. I guess maybe in some sort of way I'm like a natural born rebel in a sense. Um, my book, most books have like a table of contents, chapter one, chapter two, chapter three. But my first book actually doesn't have that at all. Um, it's actually titled Your Onslaught to Victory. And the reason why I didn't really, there's like sections, but I don't really call them titles or chapters. Um, because I feel like if you buy a book or purchase a book, and this is coming from a guy that's bought every personal development book under the sun, you may pick up a book or buy a book, but you may, read it and then put it down and may not even touch it again. And that's how it was for me. And I found like, it was just a habit. I'd buy a book because, I was inspired by this person. I'd read a little bit about them, but I couldn't really tell you much that was in the contents of the book. So I figured if I write a book and then you look at the onslaught of victory, you can see different sections, and whatever that you're struggling with or you're dealing with or need more help in, you can just go to that section, read a little bit about it, implement what you learn, put the book down, and that's it. So even if you don't read any more about the book, you at least got something out of it from like the first go around, as opposed to let me try to just get through this book and get through this book and monotonous repetition.
Mhm. Yeah, I do. I like that take on books where I like to like leaf through it, open it up, and be like, okay, and then close. Well, I like to
Yeah.
like read through the book and see like what's in there. However, I do love that concept where it's like, man, I'm struggling with this right now. And like it's just like I don't know how long your chapters are, like a 5 minute, 10 minute read, maybe
Yeah,
longer.
the whole first book is under 100 pages. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
yeah, it's relatively short. And like I said, it was designed not to read from beginning to end, but
Mhm.
to read in the order that your life presents itself. So
Yeah. Oh, I love that. The order that your life presents itself.
yeah, I hate books that have like an intro, like and it's like you don't really actually get to chapter one until like page 30 because they have like a foreword, a bio. Like
Preface.
I want to, yeah, I just wanted like I'm not dissing it, but it just isn't for me. Like I like books with no fluff. I wanted like a book that had the meat. So
Yeah. And you're just like, let's get to the point. Like,
yeah,
I
exactly,
got like, I have too much on my plate. I need to get things done.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you are a father of three. And
Yep.
so, oh man. And you work from home. And then typically, like now, is it summer vacation where you're at?
Yes,
Okay.
all the kids are out, so they're all home. Yeah.
Uh, would you well, I would love to hear because I'm a mother as well, and I have my
Hmm.
little guy who's been home and he's gonna finally start school. I was thinking about the homeschool route, however, he's just so extroverted. And I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
you can go to school, mom, you can have some time,
I
time.
feel like it has its pluses and minuses, just like
Mhm.
anything in life. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But how do you balance it out with everything between all of all of the work that you do and your family life and also having fun and like being creative?
awesome. Well, in my honest opinion, there is no balance. There's just rhythm. Um, there's some days where like I can like for example, my wife recently got a pool, so now we have a pool in the backyard. We have a trampoline, a pool, swing set, and a basketball in the driveway. So a basketball like goal in the driveway. So the kids can be insanely entertained, but of course like video games and TV. But to me, like there isn't a balance because being wet doing web and graphic design, like I have to be hands-on. I tell them all the time, it's kind of like if Michael Jackson was in a studio and he was like recording a song, you wouldn't dare interrupt him or dare stop him, because it's greatness going on,
Yeah.
um not saying that I'm in any way shape or form like Michael Jackson, but
You
it's
could
like
be though the graphic one.
um yes, but it's like when my mind is there, I'm not a multitasker, which is crazy because I'm a father of three. I'm a very one-dimensional, one-minded kind of guy, like, and it probably drives my wife crazy at times, but it's like you can't give me three things to do and expect them all to get done within an hour. I have to do like one thing, maximize that to the best that I can, then do the next thing. And so it's really just a balance. Like Before, when the kids were in school, it was just my daughter. So in between making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and dancing with her, um, I try to knock out like in some emails or a phone call. And the thing is, like, my mom is here with us as well, so it's literally a full house. And she just recently retired, but just because she's retired doesn't mean she's obligated to work for me or like help me or save me.
Yeah.
So just I try to find time when I can. A lot of times I'm getting work done when the kids are asleep, because my middle one does kung fu. So I'm usually taking him to kung fu and picking him up, and I'll bring my computer to kung fu while he's doing spinning back fists. I'm designing a website or designing a flyer. So I just try to find little pockets. But being at home, this is everything I asked for. Like when I had a 9 to 5, I hated that because I missed out on so much with my, I didn't want to come home and be like, hi kids, good night, kids.
Yeah.
And just put them to bed like that. Like that's the life that I was living previously. So I just wanted to be present. And now I've I got presence at its utmost potential because I'm in their lives more so than any other time before. But finding a balance to me is just rhythm. Like some days I'm gonna get more work done, some days I'm not gonna get as much. But being that I've been in my craft for a while, my work ethic is pretty, I would say it's pretty on point. Um, so yeah, it's just creating a rhythm for me and knowing going into it, knowing that, hey, you may be limited on this or maybe limited on that, but maximize it to the most that you can because there may be another day where, like, for example, my wife is currently on vacation. So it allows me to do things like this and allows me to get a lot of work done. So there's ebbs and flows, but there's absolutely no way where I could be like, hey, I'm gonna have 5 straight hours of being uninterrupted Monday through Friday. It's impossible. So it's gonna find like peaks and valleys.
Yeah. Yeah, that I mean that resonates so much with me. Some days I'm just like I was listening to a podcast and I believe it was, I don't remember that, don't quote me on the numbers. However,
No
during the
problem.
day you get distracted around 90 to 120 times on average. And I was like, okay, however, with children, it's like 500 times a
Yeah, you gotta, yeah, 10x that for sure.
yeah, and I'm just like, greatness, yeah, like you're saying, greatness is being made here. And it's just like
Yeah,
you get into a flow, and then it's like, mommy, or what here it says, dad, daddy.
yeah, because it's
Yeah.
like I'll have my AirPods in, I have noise cancellation on, I'll have like a playlist going on, and like when I'm in something, when it comes to web and graphic design, I see things like 7 different ways at once.
Mm, okay.
Bizarre, but like for example, if I'm doing a logo, I see it like a million different ways and I want to try all of those. So I may be on my 10th of 12th idea and I may have to stop and go outside or dance with my daughter, or my son may want to show me a kung fu move. And by the time I get back to my computer, I'm like, it looks completely different, whatever I did. So yeah, it's all about finding little pockets and stuff. But yeah, when you get interrupted or stopped, whenever you get back to your work, it takes a minute to get back into focus. And depending on what you're doing, your mindset could be in a completely different place. My mom tells me all the time, like, I talk to people or I talk to my family as if like I'm in London and I got to remember to come back to Houston, Texas. And
Mhm.
and like because my mind, like when I'm working, is just in a lot of different areas. I think that's what got me to where I am and why I believe I'm good at what I do because I'm able to see 12 different things at once.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like, also, do you have to come up with different like mock-ups?
Yeah, I love doing mock-ups. But yeah, it's like I really work off of energy.
Mhm.
So, and that's from like the get-go, from the very first phone call to the very end. It's energy. Like, um, I love what I do, but I'm not I'm not the guy for everybody. If the energy is bad, then I have to route you to one of my friends or somebody else. But I've learned that in any business, especially with mine, red flags at the beginning means red flags all throughout. So for me, it's all about energy. If the energy is good, then there's not going to be any payment issues. I'll be able to work at like my best potential because I know I'm vibing off of you. I know exactly what you want. I know the reaction that you want your customers or clients to have. I know how you want to be represented online. So it's all about energy for me from the get-go.
Yeah. I feel like that's an extremely important concept to grasp, especially for like a bunch of entrepreneurs out there or even like salespeople. Um,
Mhm.
like, how do you decipher whether the energy, I mean, you could feel it. However, explaining, I guess, like that feeling to someone or like maybe a thought process or like what you envision, like, how do you decipher this is just not going to work out?
For me, it's a lot of it comes from confidence, not even necessarily experience, because a lot of 90% of the websites I do are redos. Like they're people that business managers and all of that have they tried doing things on their own and it just didn't work out. So it's like a lot of people have you can either have confidence that hey, I want to be hands off. I'm not an expert in this field. I'm an expert at something else. I'm gonna, take all the strings off, give you, full reign to do everything. Or, there's people that are just like confident, hey, um, this is what I want. I have this envision, and I kind of what I love about it is I have the ability to create what's in their mind or extract what's in their mind and put it onto a digital canvas. Like that's what I love about my job. So for me, it's all about confidence because you can be confident, hey, Terrence is the guy for me. I've seen your work. Or you can have confidence, hey, like it's just not working. Like everything I've tried different web designers, different graphic designers, tried doing a site myself. For me is it's really about confidence. If you're struggling with like, hey, um, I don't really know what I want. I kind of want that. I think like then it's not going to work for me at all. You have to either you can be confident in not knowing what you want. Say that from the beginning. Okay, cool. Well, since you are not exactly sure what you want, or since you're sure that you don't know what you want, let's go with what you don't want. A lot of times in my experience, it's easy to figure out what you don't want as opposed to what you do want. But yeah, for energy, to me, um, it's linear with confidence. If you aren't confident that I'm the guy for you, then find the guy or girl for you. Um, if you aren't confident that we're going to have a good experience, then you're not. Like, so at the beginning is essentially dictates how the ending is going to go.
Yeah. And then, with that sort of mindset, not taking everyone to that comes your way. Because I've seen it. My best friend is a graphic designer as well. And
Mhm.
she's like talked about how just people will nitpick or like when they don't know, when they don't have that clarity. It's like really hard to be clear on like what you're doing, where you're going, if the person's not clear. And then
Yeah.
it's like, well, can you switch this around? Can you move this around? Can we do this? Or like 100 times. And then it's still like they're still not happy, you know?
Yeah. And it's like
Like I
we call that scope creep. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
didn't.
So essentially, like say like you hired me to do a press kit for you. Okay. So you hired me to do the press kit. I send you the proposal, it outlines the terms, conditions, and all of that. So you like it, it looks great, but you want to tweak here and tweak there, and you want to create a brochure and you want to turn it eventually goes from a press kit to business cards. That's not originally what the project was for. So we call that scope creep, where there's a scope of work that I'm doing for you, I'm getting hired and you're paying me for, and you're literally like creeping up more work and more work and more work. So we call that scope creep. It's a weird name, but that's just what we call it. So yeah, it's I feel like a lot of people really don't know what they want until they see things. And then there's other clients that can see things in their head. They just need it on a digital canvas. And those are the kind of clients that I try to go for. But in my experience, it's a lot of it's the questions that you ask, because you can only extract so much. So if they don't give you the information, I feel like it's kind of your responsibility to get it for them, to
Mhm.
get it from them. But I feel like a lot of, and when I first started off, at low paying clients gave me the most problems, and the higher paying clients, like I said before, they're like, hey, you got free reins to do everything. I trust you. I have full confidence in you, and I'm gonna do a great job. Like my whole slogan is, how you present yourself is how you pay yourself.
Yeah.
So if I do a bad job, they're gonna be like, oh, who did your site? Who did your, your branding? And I'm like, oh, Terrence did it. Like, okay, cool. I know I don't want him to do my stuff because yours looks like trash. So it's like I have to make sure that like I always have to design and create for the next person outside of the person I'm creating for, because my referrals and stuff are gonna come off of doing a great job for client number one. That's how a lot of times how I get client number two.
Okay. Um, what sort of client do you typically attract? Do you have like a certain type that you attract or?
Definitely. I actually went over this with the group yesterday. A lot of my clients are females, usually between like 30 and 45. And they're always business owners. Um, I don't know, maybe because I was raised by my mom and my grandma, two women, significantly in my life. Um, 99% of my clients are women. I feel like I just naturally attract that. I think maybe because like that's essentially the way I was raised. And it's not even putting them on a pedestal, but it's like that's naturally who I gravitate towards. I feel like we speak the same language. And
Like,
they're
you're very
use
intuitive.
hmm,
You're really intuitive, and I feel like you're really in tune with your more feminine side. You're in tune with your masculine side too. Like looking at your work and the structure, like I feel like you have a really great balance,
mhm.
which make feminine energy is attracted to
No,
that.
it's funny and it's crazy that you say that, because I feel like, yeah, my feminine side, I feel like is pretty epic, but I feel like I've been told that like my designs are very masculine,
Mhm.
because I use a lot of black. I remember there was a client that I worked for or worked with, and I had black in her designs. She's like, oh, I don't want any black. It's too masculine. I'm like, the hell are you talking about? No one's ever told me that before. And I looked at my work, and like a lot of it was like had shadows and was dark and was black. And I'm like, huh, she has a point. And it goes to like her being able to see something that I couldn't see myself. So yeah, I feel like a lot of designs, I don't know, are masculine, but now I kind of have the balance thanks to her
Mhm.
pointing that out. So I know how to determine, I know what colors, what palettes can give off certain tones.
Mhm. Awesome, awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I like I'm just so glad to have you on my podcast. And then you also had a TED Talk. However, we're like, you know, getting towards the end of the episode, and
Okay.
you had a cool concept with it that I've never heard before. And so I'm gonna go check out that TED Talk. Um, however, do you have like the link to that? And then I can
Yeah.
link it below. Okay. So everything.
I can either send you the link, or you can go to Sani Creative,
Mm,
and on the about section it has like my whole TED talk. I think it's like just a little over 10 minutes.
okay, awesome. And so everyone and anyone that's listening or watching on YouTube, that will be in the description down below. And would you like to share like a brief um intro on your TED Talk? Because that like with the concept that you shared with me, I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially the TED talk's about the early bird and the worm, and it's pretty much destroying the belief that we have about the early bird getting the worm. How, we've been told that the early bird gets the worm, there's all these benefits to it, it's a positive thing, and no one's ever questioned it. I feel is as if no one ever has until my TED talk. And I feel like a lot of times, if you're told things over and over and over again, the more you hear it, the more you believe it to be true. And again, it's me being hard headed, me coloring outside the lines. I'm the kind of person that wants to question everything and kind of want to play devil's advocate. So a TED Talk is essentially questioning that belief and seeing if the early bird is actually the one that gets the worm.
Yeah. All right. I love it. And I love how you just think outside the box. That's what the world needs more of, honestly.
Yeah,
It's just thinking out,
definitely.
because outside the box is where, where you're risking, where you're
Yeah,
taking.
that's where progression is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right, Terrence, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners or viewers
No
before we?
problem. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This was an honor, and I'm glad we were able to get the schedule
Mm.
right and everything. Just want to tell the audience, if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me. If you have any graphic design, web design inquiries, you can definitely go to sonnycreative.com. You can actually see videos of me live in action. I have a blog. You can check out my books there as well. So,
Awesome. All right, guys, you heard it from him. All right, have a good one. Bye.
bye.